She poured a vintage glass of red wine over my head while 300 socialites gasped in delight. My fiancé, the man I thought I was going to marry, just stood there, checking his watch, afraid the splash might ruin his Italian shoes. They called me a gutter rat, and live-streamed my tears to the world. But they didn't know one small detail. The poor girl they were destroying was actually the sole heiress to the sterling global empire. And that roaring sound shaking the windows? That wasn't thunder. That was my father's security team landing on their front lawn. Before we dive into this captivating story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss more interesting stories. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and share your thoughts on this story. I'd really love to hear your opinion. Now let's get started. My name is Sophia, and I need to tell you about the night that burned my old life to the ground. To understand why I was standing in a ballroom wearing a $20 dress, allowing people to mock me, you have to understand where I came from. I am the only daughter of Robert Sterling. If you watch the news, use social media, or read a newspaper, you utilize a Sterling product every single day. My father built a media conglomerate worth over $12 billion. I grew up in a world that most people only see in movies. I had horses, private tutors, vacations on islands that don't appear on regular maps, and a security detail that followed me to the bathroom. But there was a hollowness to it all that ate away at me. By the time I was 23, I had been proposed to 4 times. The first guy wanted my father to invest in his failing tech startup. The second guy was an aristocrat who needed a cash injection to save his family's crumbling castle. The third one actually tried to network with my father during our engagement dinner. I didn't have friends. I had sycophants. I didn't have boyfriends. I had applicants. I was so incredibly lonely in a room full of people that I felt like I was suffocating. So on my 24th birthday, I did something drastic. I ran away. Well, not in the dramatic, midnight train kind of way. It was a calculated move. I sat my father down in his study, a room that smelled of old leather and expensive scotch, and told him I needed to know if I could survive as just Sophia. Not Sophia Sterling, the heiress, but Sophia Miller, a regular girl. My father, terrifying to his employees but a softie for me, was reluctant. He argued about safety, about the cruelty of the real world. But eventually, he agreed on one condition. I would have a panic button on a keychain, and his head of security, Alfred, would know my location at all times. I moved to Chicago, a city where I could disappear. I rented a studio apartment that was smaller than my childhood closet. The faucet leaked, the radiator clanked, and the neighbors argued loudly at 3 a.m. I loved it. I got a job at a dusty, chaotic used bookstore called Thepage Turner. I organized shelves, recommended classics to college students, and for the first time in my life I breathed freely. That was where I met Liam. It was a Tuesday in November, and the wind was howling off Lake Michigan. He walked into the shop shaking a wet umbrella, looking like a lost puppy. He had kind eyes and a jawline that could cut glass. He was looking for a rare book on mid-century architecture for his father. I spent an hour helping him track it down in the chaotic back room. When we found it, his face lit up in a way that made my stomach do flip-flops. He asked me out for coffee as a thank you. I hesitated. I was Sophia Miller, the bookstore clerk who made $15 an hour. Would he still be interested? We went to a small diner next door. He ordered a black coffee. I ordered a latte. We talked for 4 hours. He told me he worked for his family's construction firm, that he was trying to prove himself to his demanding parents. He seemed humble, hardworking, and sweet. He didn't ask about my last name. He didn't ask who my father was. He just asked what books I loved and why I laughed when I was nervous. We dated for 10 months. It was the happiest time of my life. Or so I thought. Looking back, I see the cracks I chose to ignore. Liam loved that I was low maintenance. He praised me for not needing expensive gifts. "You're so real, Sophia," he would say. "Not like the girls my mother tries to set me up with. You enjoy the simple things." One night his car broke down, and he was stressed about the repair bill. I offered to pay for dinner, pizza at a dive bar, and he looked at me with such pity. "I promise, babe," he said, squeezing my hand. "One day I'll be able to take you somewhere nice. You won't have to count pennies forever." I almost laughed. I could have bought the entire block of restaurants without blinking. But I stayed silent. I wanted to be loved for me, not my credit limit. I was guarding my secret like a dragon guarding gold, terrified that if I revealed the truth, the magic would vanish. Then came the invitation. It was his parents' 30th wedding anniversary. The Diamond Jubilee, his mother called it. It was to be held at their estate in Lake Forest. It's going to be intense, Liam warned me, looking nervous. My mother, Victoria, she's particular. And my sister Bella can be a lot. But I want you there. It's time they met the girl I love. My heart swelled. This was it. The final test. If his family could accept Sophia Miller, the poor bookstore clerk, then I could finally tell Liam the truth. We could build a life based on total honesty. I called Alfred, my father's assistant and basically my second dad, to tell him the plan. Alfred was silent on the line for a long moment. Miss Sophia, he said, his voice grave. The wealthy can be predatory when they smell weakness. Are you sure you want to walk into the lion's den without your armor? I have to, Alfred, I told him. I need to know if their love is real. I spent 3 days agonizing over what to wear. I couldn't wear my actual clothes. My closet back home was full of Chanel, Dior, and Valentino. I went to a local department store and found a pale blue dress on the clearance rack. It was simple, elegant, and cost $40. I did my own hair in a messy bun and applied minimal makeup. I looked like myself. Vulnerable. Exposed. Liam picked me up in his leased BMW. When I walked out of my apartment building, he frowned slightly. Is that what you're wearing? He asked. I looked down at my dress. Yes. Is it not okay? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's fine. It's just, my mom is wearing couture. But you look sweet. Like a rustic wildflower. It was a backhanded compliment, but I took it. The drive to the estate was tense. Liam gave me a list of rules. Don't mention you work retail unless asked directly. Maybe say you're in publishing instead of a bookstore clerk. And please don't eat the hors d'oeuvres too eagerly. My mother hates gluttony. My stomach twisted. He was ashamed of me. I should have asked him to stop the car right there. I should have gotten out. But I was in love, and love makes you stupid. We pulled up to the gates of the Kensington estate. It was impressive, I'll admit. Manicured lawns, a fountain that probably cost more than my Chicago apartment building, and luxury cars lining the driveway. But compared to my father's estates, it was cute. Quaint even. We walked into the ballroom, and the noise hit me first. The clinking of crystal, the murmur of gossip, the string quartet playing in the corner. There were about 300 people there. The women were draped in silk and dripping in sapphires and emeralds. The men looked like they were comparing stock portfolios. As we navigated the crowd, I felt the eyes. Judgmental, cold eyes. They scanned my off-the-rack dress, my lack of jewelry, my sensible heels. I heard a whisper from a woman with too much Botox. Is that the charity case Liam is dating? Liam gripped my hand, his palm sweaty. Just smile, he hissed. Then the crowd parted. Victoria Kensington stood by the fireplace like a queen holding court. She was wearing a blood-red gown that looked like it was made of liquid money. Her neck was weighed down by a diamond necklace that was honestly a bit tacky in its size. Beside her stood Bella, Liam's sister, looking at her phone with boredom. Bella was beautiful in a terrifying way. Sharp features, cold eyes, and a smirk that said she knew your deepest insecurities. Mother, Liam said, his voice cracking slightly. I'd like you to meet Sophia. Victoria turned her gaze on me. It felt like walking into a freezer. She didn't offer her hand. She just looked me up and down, slowly, agonizingly. Sophia, she said. Her voice was smooth and poisonous. Liam has told us some things about you. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Kensington, I said, extending my hand. She looked at it like I was offering her a handful of mud. She didn't take it. So, Bella chimed in, stepping forward. You're the book girl? Like you actually stack shelves for a living. She laughed, a harsh tinkling sound. That is so quaint. Do you need a library card to date my brother? A few people nearby chuckled. Liam shifted his weight, but said nothing. I work at a bookstore, yes, I said, keeping my chin up. I love literature. Victoria took a sip of her wine. Literature, she mocked. Tell me, dear, does literature pay for a membership at this country club? Does literature buy property in the Hamptons? No, I said quietly. But it brings me joy. Joy, Victoria scoffed. Joy doesn't keep the lights on, darling. Liam needs a partner who brings something to the table. Assets. Connections. Legacy. Not. Whatever this is. She gestured vaguely at my entire existence. Mom, please, Liam muttered, but he was looking at the floor. Don't be rude. I'm not being rude, Liam, Victoria snapped. I'm being realistic. Look at her. She's wearing polyester. She smells like public transportation and desperation. She's clearly a gold digger. The words hung in the air. The music seemed to stop. The conversations around us died down. Everyone was watching. Excuse me, I said, my voice shaking. I am not a gold digger. I love your son. Please, Bella laughed, circling me like a shark. You found a rich boy with a trust fund and latched on like a parasite. It's a tale as old as time. The poor little match girl trying to warm herself by our fire. Tears pricked my eyes. I turned to Liam. Liam, tell them. Tell them how we met. Tell them I've never asked you for a penny. Liam looked up, his face pale. He looked at his mother, then at me. I saw the calculation in his eyes. He was afraid of losing his allowance. He was afraid of being cut off. Sophia, he mumbled. Maybe you should just go. This is a lot for you to handle. My heart shattered. It wasn't a crack, it was an explosion. He wasn't defending me. He was dismissing me. You want me to leave? I whispered. I think it's best, Victoria interjected. Before you embarrass yourself further. We have legitimate guests here. Senators, CEOs, people who matter. She took a step closer to me. You are a gutter rat, my dear. And you need to scurry back to the sewer you crawled out of. Anger replaced my sadness. A cold, hard anger that I inherited directly from Robert Sterling. I may not be wearing diamonds, Mrs. Kensington, I said, my voice gaining strength. But I have more class in my little finger than you have in your entire bank account. Victoria's eyes widened. She wasn't used to people fighting back. Her face turned a shade of crimson that matched her dress. How dare you, she hissed. How dare you speak to me like that in my own house? She raised her glass. You need to cool off. It happened in slow motion. She tilted her hand. The dark red vintage Merlot cascaded out of the crystal goblet. It splashed over my face, my hair, my pale blue dress. The cold liquid soaked into the fabric instantly, turning it a deep, ugly purple. It dripped down my nose into my eyes. I gasped, blinded for a second. The room erupted. Not in horror, but in laughter. It started as a few giggles and turned into a roar. I wiped the wine from my eyes and saw Bella holding her phone up, the flash on. Oh my God, live on Insta, she squealed. Mom just baptized the rat. Hashtag trash takeout. I looked at Liam. He was standing 3 feet away. He hadn't moved to stop her. He hadn't moved to help me. He was looking down at his Italian loafers, checking to see if any wine had splashed on them. He took a tissue from his pocket and dabbed at his own cuff. I stood there, dripping, humiliated, while 300 people laughed at my expense. I felt small. I felt dirty. But then, I remembered who I was. I remembered the panic button on my keychain in my purse. I didn't need to press it though, because at that exact moment, the windows of the ballroom began to rattle. It started as a low thrumming sound, like a giant heart beating. Thump, thump, thump. Then it grew into a roar. The crystal chandeliers began to sway violently. The laughter died down as confusion spread through the crowd. Is that thunder? Someone asked. No, a man near the window said, peering out. That's oh my God. The noise became deafening. The guests rushed to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the great lawn. I didn't move. I knew exactly what it was. Outside, the manicured grass was being flattened by the rotor wash of a massive, sleek black helicopter. It didn't have a registration number on the side. It just had a logo in silver. A stylized S. Sterling Global. The helicopter touched down, crushing Victoria's prize-winning rose bushes. The door opened before the rotors even stopped spinning. 4 men in tactical black suits jumped out first. My father's personal security detail. Then my father emerged. Robert Sterling. He was wearing a tuxedo, having likely come from a gala in New York. He looked furious. Not just mad, apocalyptic. He marched across the lawn towards the French doors, his security team flanking him. The guests in the ballroom parted like the Red Sea. They knew that face. They saw it on the cover of Forbes, on the news, on the stock exchange floor. Is that Robert Sterling? I heard a whisper. What is he doing here? The door swung open. My father walked in, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. He didn't look at the guests. He scanned the room until his eyes locked on me. He saw the wine dripping from my hair. He saw the stain on my dress. He saw me shivering. His face went pale, and then it hardened into stone. He walked straight to me, taking off his tuxedo jacket as he moved. He wrapped it around my shoulders, shielding me from the stares. Sophia, he said, his voice gentle but shaking with rage. Are you hurt? No, Dad, I whispered, pulling the jacket tight. Just messy. Dad. Bella dropped her phone. It hit the marble floor with a crack. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Victoria looked like she was having a stroke. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Mr. Sterling, she stammered. Oui. I didn't know. My father ignored her. He turned to one of his security guards. Get me a towel. And get the car ready. We're leaving. Then he turned to face Victoria. He towered over her. Did you do this? He asked, pointing at my wine-soaked dress. Victoria was trembling. It was an accident. A misunderstanding. She didn't tell us who she was. She came here in rags. She came here as herself, my father boomed, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. She came here to see if you were decent human beings. And you proved exactly what you are. He turned to the crowd. All of you. You watched a young woman be bullied and humiliated, and you laughed? You recorded it. He pointed at Bella, who was trying to kick her phone under a table. I saw the live stream, young lady. My team was monitoring my daughter's location. We saw everything. Kenneth Kensington, Liam's father, finally pushed through the crowd. He looked terrified. He knew business. He knew that Sterling Global was the primary investor in the massive skyscraper project his company was building downtown. Mr. Sterling, please, Kenneth begged, sweating profusely. My wife, she's not well. She made a mistake. Please, let's discuss this rationally. We can pay for the dress. We can pay for the dress. My father laughed, a cold, terrifying sound. Kenneth, you realize that my company holds the underwriting for your entire construction firm, correct? Kenneth went gray. Sir, please. Pull it, my father said, speaking into the air. But I knew Alfred was listening on his earpiece. Pull the funding for the Kensington Tower project. Invoke the character clause in the contract. Gross misconduct. Effective immediately. No. Kenneth shrieked. That will bankrupt us. We're leveraged to the hilt. You should have thought about that before your family assaulted my daughter, my father said calmly. Then he turned to Liam. Liam was standing there, frozen. He looked at me, then at my father, then back at me. The realization was washing over him. The poor girl he was ashamed of was the heiress to a fortune that could buy his family 10 times over. Sophia, Liam said, his voice trembling. He took a step forward, reaching for my hand. Babe, I didn't know. If I had known. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. That's the problem, Liam, I said, my voice steady now. If you had known I was a Sterling, you would have defended me. You would have treated me like a princess. But because you thought I was nobody, you let them treat me like garbage. No, I love you, he cried, tears forming in his eyes. Ido. Mom, tell her. I love her. You don't love me, I said. You love the idea of safety. You're a coward, Liam. And I thank God I found out tonight, before I wasted another day on you. I took off the engagement ring he had given me. A small, modest ring that I had cherished because I thought it represented his hard work. I dropped it into his glass of champagne. Plink. Keep it, I said. You're going to need the money. "Let's go, Sophia," my father said, putting a protective arm around me. We walked back toward the shattered French doors. The crowd was silent, terrified. As we reached the helicopter, I stopped and turned back one last time. Victoria was slumped in a chair, sobbing. Kenneth was screaming into his phone. Bella was staring at her broken screen. And Liam was just standing there, alone in the middle of the dance floor. We lifted off into the night sky. I looked down at the estate getting smaller and smaller, disappearing into the darkness. I wiped the last of the wine from my cheek. I thought I would feel sad. I thought I would be heartbroken. But as the city lights of Chicago appeared on the horizon, glittering like diamonds, I felt something else entirely. I felt clean. The aftermath was swift and brutal. My father wasn't kidding about the funding. By Monday morning, Kensington Construction shares had plummeted 60%. By Wednesday, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The video of Victoria throwing wine on me went viral, but not in the way Bella intended. The internet turned on them. #GutterRat became a trending topic, but people were using it to mock the Kensingtons, not me. Bella was dropped by her sorority and lost her influencer sponsorships. Victoria and Kenneth were pariahs at the country club. Nobody wanted to associate with the family that angered Robert Sterling. As for me, I went back to the bookstore. But this time I didn't hide. I started a foundation called The Open Book, dedicated to providing scholarships for underprivileged students who want to study literature and arts. I used my name, my real name, to do good. 6 months later, I was walking down the street and I saw Liam. He was working at a valet stand outside a restaurant. He looked tired. He saw me, and for a second, our eyes locked. He started to raise his hand, maybe to wave, maybe to apologize. I didn't stop. I didn't smile. I just kept walking. I had a meeting with a group of architects about building a new library in the South Side. One of the architects, a man named Julian, had been sending me flowers. Not because I was a Sterling, but because I had debated him on brutalist architecture for 2 hours and won. Karma is a funny thing. It doesn't always come with a helicopter and a billionaire father. Sometimes, it just comes from the truth coming to light. But I won't lie, the helicopter helped. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that your worth is never determined by the price tag on your clothes. And remember, be careful who you step on while you're climbing the ladder. They might just own the ladder. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.